You know, when we see someone win the lottery, there is this almost like universal assumption that their problems are just done.
Right, like they're instantly set for life.
Exactly. The giant novelty check clears and boom, instant lifelong success. But then you look at the actual statistics and it's absolutely wild how many lottery winners end up completely bankrupt within just a few short years.
Yeah, it really shatters that whole illusion that money is just, a simple math equation.
Oh, absolutely.
We are so deeply conditioned to assume that if the numbers in the bank account go up, well, then the person's financial reality is permanently fixed.
Right. Which makes sense on the surface.
Sure, but sudden wealth syndrome proves that if you pour millions of dollars into a leaky bucket, you just get a bigger puddle.
A bigger puddle. I love that. Because the bank account changed, but the mind operating it stayed exactly the same.
Exactly.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking a massive stack of behavioral psychology research, financial case studies, and sociological data to figure out why that happens.
And it's such an important topic.
It really is. Our mission today isn't to look at stock portfolios or analyze commercial real estate trends or anything like that. We are going straight to the root, which is the psychology of wealth.
The foundational stuff.
Right. Specifically, we are exploring the fundamental psychological divides between a rich mindset and a poor mindset.
And, to be clear right from the start, when we talk about a rich or poor mindset today, we are not talking about the current balance in someone's checking account.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. We are talking about an internal operating system. You could be totally broke right now, but operating with a rich mindset, which means your bank account will, eventually catch up.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core thesis running through all our sources today is that this profound divide is really about cognitive habits.
That is the perfect way to frame it. In fact, the source material anchors this whole psychological framework by bringing up a proverb we've all heard like a million times.
Let me guess. Give a man a fish.
That's the one. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, feed him for a lifetime.
It's a classic, but how does the research actually apply that to behavioral economics?
Well, by looking at the cognitive friction involved. A rich mindset is entirely focused on learning to fish.
Meaning they focus on the process.
Exactly. It's obsessed with acquiring the methodology, enduring the frustration of being a beginner, and really building the skill.
And the poor mindset.
A poor mindset, on the other hand, is simply asking for the fish because of cognitive ease. It just wants the immediate result.
Like the immediate dopamine hit of the meal.
Right, without ever having to expend the mental calories to understand the underlying process.
Which means for you listening right now, whether you are trying to build a business from the ground up or you just want to understand your own daily financial habits, identifying which of these operating systems is running in the background of your brain is the crucial first step.
You really have to know what software is running before you can patch the bugs. And before anyone can even think about picking up a fishing pole, there is this massive psychological barrier they have to cross.
Which is fear, right?
Yeah, fear. Specifically, the evolutionary fear of losing what little security you already possess.
So let's dive into how these two mindsets handle risk and the pursuit of the skills needed to actually mitigate that risk, because the sources highlight a massive divergence in sheer risk-taking ability.
They really do.
A rich mindset takes calculated risks, whereas a poor mindset is fundamentally obsessed with safety. They prefer to just save whatever they can without ever actually investing or exposing themselves to the unknown.
Which is, in reality, largely an illusion of safety. Our brains are hardwired to view the unknown as a threat.
Sure, survival instincts.
Right. In a prehistoric context, stepping into the unknown meant getting eaten. Today, it just means you might lose some capital. But our nervous system reacts the exact same way.
Wow, that's wild.
Our sources actually share a highly tangible example of this dynamic. There was a professional who decided to quit an incredibly stable, salaried corporate job to start his own business.
Oh, boy. I can already imagine the reactions.
Oh, yeah. The immediate reaction from everyone around him, people operating heavily in that poor mindset, was that he was basically having a psychotic break.
I can hear the chorus of panic now. Like, what are you doing? You have benefits. Don't rock the boat.
The panic from his peers was entirely anchored in maintaining baseline security. They were obsessing over how he was going to make his monthly mortgage and, his car payments.
So they couldn't see past the immediate bills.
Exactly. The poor mindset looks at the baseline financial obligations and becomes completely paralyzed. They literally cannot see past the next 30 days of bills because their brain is treating that baseline like literal physical survival.
But the reality of that case study is that by pushing through that biological fear barrier, this guy built a business that now generates a massive six-figure monthly income,
Yeah, an incredible return.
which is a life-altering return. But the poor mindset misses that opportunity entirely out of a desperate, clinging desire for short-term predictability.
Predictability that actually guarantees long-term failure, honestly, because inflation slowly eats away at those hyper-safe savings anyway.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit, because isn't taking huge leaps just, well, gambling, if you don't actually know what you're doing?
That's a fair point.
I mean, quitting your job to start a business sounds incredibly heroic right up until the moment you go completely bankrupt because you have zero idea how to run a company.
What's fascinating here is you are exactly right. Taking a blind leap is just gambling. It's totally financially reckless.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're not just telling people to quit their jobs tomorrow.
No, definitely not. But it ceases to be gambling when you pair it with the next major cognitive shift, which is transitioning from an earning mindset to a learning mindset.
Ah, okay. So the risk isn't just a blind skydive without a parachute.
Not at all. A rich mindset operates on the principle of front-loading. You learn first, and then you earn.
Learn first, then earn.
Yeah. It is about loading your brain with knowledge, frameworks, and data before ever expecting a payout. The sources highlight that this means, devouring books, taking extensive courses, and aggressively seeking out mentors who have already successfully navigated those waters.
Right, so the risk becomes calculated because they've done the unglamorous heavy lifting of education.
Exactly. A poor mindset just wants to skip to the front of the line and earn directly, bypassing the skill acquisition phase entirely.
Which brings up that wildly relatable example from our behavioral case studies. There's this scenario described where someone essentially demands, like, I want $1 million.
Right, just demanding it from the universe.
Yeah, they want this huge, life-changing sum of money handed to them without having built a single actual skill to generate that kind of value in the real marketplace.
It reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how value is actually exchanged in human society. You do not get paid for what you want or what you feel you deserve.
That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It is, but you get paid strictly for the value you can provide to others.
And when that $1 million doesn't magically manifest, instead of taking a step back, auditing their own lack of skills and getting to work, the poor mindset retreats into victimhood.
It's so common.
The sources paint this perfect modern picture. They sit on the couch, they scroll endlessly through Instagram reels, they look at everyone else's curated highlight reel, and they just wallow in resentment.
Yeah.
They tell themselves, the system is rigged, everyone else is rich, and only I am poor.
And, that victim mentality is actually a brilliant psychological defense mechanism
Oh, really? How so?
because it resolves cognitive dissonance. If you can convince yourself that the game is entirely rigged against you, then you absolve yourself of the responsibility to learn.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense.
You never have to put in the hard, uncomfortable work to learn how to fish because you've decided there are no fish in the pond anyway.
It is such a heavy anchor to drag around. But let's say you do cross that bridge. Once you actually commit to learning, you hit a fascinating paradox.
Which is?
You realize that to acquire those skills, you have to spend something far more valuable than the money you are trying to make, which fundamentally changes your relationship with your own resources.
Oh, yes. Because the ultimate resource we are analyzing here isn't actually currency. It is time.
Think about how often you hear people say, I just don't have the money to do that. It's the default excuse for almost any new venture or self-improvement effort.
It is the universal defense. But what the research points out is that people operating with a poor mindset usually do have time.
Right. They have evenings, weekends.
Exactly. They have hours every evening. They have their weekends. But they utterly fail to convert that time into tangible value or knowledge. They just bleed their time out through distraction.
A poor mindset treats their time and energy like an endless power grid. They will leave the lights on, so to speak, bleeding out hours to save a few pennies. But a rich mindset treats their time like a laptop battery on 5%. They will pay an absolute premium for anything that preserves it.
That is a phenomenal analogy. The rich mindset looks at the exact same 24-hour day and says, I don't have time.
Because they value it so highly.
Right. Because to them, Time is the only truly non-renewable resource. So instead of trading massive amounts of their time to save tiny amounts of money, they actively deploy their capital to buy their time back.
The sources point to hiring household, like a driver, a cleaner, or a cook as a prime example of this.
A poor mindset looks at hiring a driver and thinks, what a ridiculous waste of money, I can just drive myself across town for free.
Right, they just see the cost.
But the rich mindset looks at that hour-long commute in heavy traffic and thinks about cognitive bandwidth.
They see the opportunity cost.
Exactly. They think, if I hire a driver, I can spend that hour in the back seat taking client calls, making critical strategic decisions, or honestly just resting my eyes so my brain is operating at peak capacity when I walk into the boardroom.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
They are spending money to protect your cognitive energy and increase their leverage.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I can hear someone listening right now, maybe driving in their car, saying, okay, that sounds great in theory, but isn't hiring a cook or a personal driver a luxury that you only get after you're already rich?
It's very common pushback.
Like, you need the surplus capital in the first place to buy the time, right?
It's the classic chicken and egg question of personal finance. But the behavioral research is adamant on this distinction. It is the mindset of prioritizing productivity over pennies that has to come first.
So you don't need to hire a chauffeur right away.
No, it's not about literally hiring a chauffeur when your checking account is empty. It's about treating whatever time you do have as sacred.
I see.
It's choosing to spend your Saturday morning building a prototype instead of spending 3 hours driving across town just to save $5 on groceries.
And that protective stance over your time stems directly from how you view the world's resources at a macro level. Which brings us to arguably the most important psychological split in our sources, which is the scarcity versus abundance mindset.
This is the absolute bedrock of a person's financial worldview, and it is deeply rooted in our evolutionary biology.
Tell me more about that.
Well, a scarcity mindset operates on the deep-seated belief that resources are fundamentally limited. It views wealth as a single pie. There are only so many slices to go around.
Which makes sense if you're a hunter-gatherer. I mean, if another tribe takes the berries, your tribe starves. It's a zero-sum game.
Precisely. We are biologically programmed for a zero-sum environment. So when someone with a scarcity mindset sees another person earn a lot of money, their ancient brain subconsciously interprets that as a literal threat.
Oh, wow.
It feels like there is now less out there for them.
Which explains why that worldview breeds such intense resentment and jealousy. Every success around you feels like a personal attack. If your neighbor gets a promotion or buys a new car, it physically hurts. It feels like they stole a piece of your potential success.
It creates a state of chronic psychological stress. But an abundance mindset requires actively overriding that evolutionary default. It completely flips the script.
How so?
It operates on the modern reality that money and wealth are not a single pie. Wealth can be created, it is unlimited. We don't have to fight over the slices. We could just build a bakery and bake more pies.
I love that. If you are earning and I am earning, we aren't taking from each other. We are expanding the overall economy.
And that perspective naturally leads to collaboration instead of vicious competition. When a person with a rich mindset sees someone who is incredibly successful, their brain doesn't trigger a threat response.
They don't get jealous.
No, they don't get jealous. They grab a notebook and say, how did you do that? What do you know that I don't know? They leverage other people's success as an educational tool instead of envying it.
Just imagine walking through daily life where other people's massive success doesn't make you feel smaller.
It's incredibly free.
It frees up an unbelievable amount of emotional bandwidth. Bandwidth you can actually channel into building your own wealth instead of just stewing in bitterness.
But, having a beautiful, sunny, abundant worldview is practically useless if it remains purely theoretical.
Right. You can sit on a mountaintop, meditate on abundance, and visualize success all day long, but your bank account is going to look exactly the same tomorrow morning.
Thought must eventually translate to physical action in the real world.
Which brings us to the friction between taking action and overthinking. Because even if you have an abundance mindset, when it comes time to actually launch the business or make the investment, a poor mindset becomes absolutely crippled by two very toxic, paralyzing questions.
Let me guess.
What if I fail?
Yeah.
And what will people say?
That second question is incredibly potent. The fear of judgment. Again, we could trace this right back to our tribal instinct.
It always goes back to the tribe, doesn't it?
It really does.
Oh.
In ancient human history, being judged negatively by your peers and ostracized from the tribe didn't just mean your feelings got hurt. It meant literal starvation and death. Our brains process social rejection the exact same way they process physical pain.
Which is why taking a financial risk feels like a life or death scenario to a poor mindset. It leads to this endless loop of analysis paralysis.
Yeah, the overthink
You
thing.
overthink every single possible negative outcome until you successfully convinced yourself that the only safe route is to just do nothing.
Right.
And if, by some miracle, someone with this mindset does try something new and they hit a single roadblock and fail, that's it. They stop completely. They say, see? I knew I shouldn't have tried.
It becomes a total self-fulfilling prophecy.
Hmm.
But the rich mindset chemically changes their brain's response to setbacks. Instead of agonizing over, what if I fail? They orient themselves toward the upside, asking, what if I succeed?
And crucially, when they do fail, because everyone fails, I mean, the market basically guarantees it, they don't see it as an identity crisis.
No, they treat failure purely as a data point. The emotional sting is completely removed. It is just a necessary mechanism for discovering what doesn't work.
Right.
The sources highlight the classic historical example of this resilience, which is Thomas Edison and the invention of the light bulb.
The text points out that Edison failed 1,000 times before he finally created a commercially viable filament. Now, just imagine if he had been operating with a poor, scarcity-driven mindset.
Oh, he would have quit at attempt number 4 because his ego couldn't handle it.
Seriously.
He would have been consumed by worrying about what all the other scientists were whispering about him behind his back. He would have concluded he was a fraud and stopped to save face.
Wow.
And as the research notes, if failure was treated as a stop sign rather than a stepping stone, innovation would grind to a halt.
Okay, but let me throw another wrench into this. Because Edison might have invented the bulb in his lab through relentless trial and error, but he didn't string up the power lines, build the generators, and wire the entire world for electricity all by himself.
That is very true.
You cannot just act in a total vacuum no matter how much of an action-taking maverick you are.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that observation perfectly highlights the final massive difference in our deep dive today, which is the approach to networking.
The lone wolf myth versus the power of the pack.
Exactly. A poor mindset often operates in an isolated silo, driven by ego. They think, I don't need anyone. I have to build this all by myself to prove I am self-made and worthy.
Like it's a badge of honor.
Right. They view asking for help or admitting they lack a certain skill as a sign of weakness or incompetence.
But a rich mindset operates on the mantra that your network is your net worth. They understand that isolating yourself is actually a massive liability.
They are constantly connecting with people, actively offering value to others without immediately keeping score, and crucially, they are completely willing to be vulnerable and receive help in return.
Which is so important.
The ultimate case study provided in the sources for this is the relationship between Warren Buffett and Bill Gates.
Two of the wealthiest human beings in recorded history.
Right. And despite being at the absolute apex of their respective domains, finance and technology, they never isolated themselves.
Yeah, they didn't just retreat to their islands.
Exactly. They didn't decide they had nothing left to learn. They collaborate.
Yeah.
They spend immense amounts of time together, absorbing each other's distinct perspectives on global markets.
That's incredible.
If two men with that level of stratospheric success still prioritize aggressive networking and learning from a peer, it proves that it is a permanent psychological habit. It is an ongoing practice, not just a ladder you kick away once you make it to the top.
So what does this all mean? Let's smoothly pull all these threads together. What we've unpacked today is a complete overhaul of an internal operating system.
Yeah.
It means moving away from a biological fear of the unknown and embracing calculated risk. It means valuing the friction of learning over the instant gratification of earning.
It requires treating your time, your cognitive bandwidth, as your most precious resource, rather than endlessly trading it for small amounts of money.
Exactly.
And fundamentally, it means rewiring your brain out of a zero-sum scarcity mentality, where someone else's success threatens you, into an abundance mentality where success is collaborative.
It's choosing imperfect action over the paralysis of worrying about what other people might say, and reframing failure from a personal tragedy into a simple data point.
Well said.
And finally, stripping away the ego of the lone wolf and realizing that building real, sustainable wealth is a team sport. Your network truly is your net worth.
And if there is one absolutely vital message to take away from all the behavioral economics and psychology we've covered today, it is this. This operating system is entirely changeable.
You are not permanently locked into the mindset you have today.
You are not. If you're listening to this and recognizing the symptoms of a poor mindset in your own behavior, you have the neuroplasticity and the agency to rewrite that software starting tomorrow.
That's so empowering.
The execution is simple, though it requires immense discipline. Pick up a book instead of your phone. Find a mentor. Endure the discomfort of learning a high-leverage skill. And most importantly, execute on it despite the fear. If you upgrade the internal thinking first, the external wealth becomes a natural byproduct.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We know that our initial financial mindsets are largely shaped by the people we just happen to grow up around, our parents, our early peers, the socioeconomic environment we were dropped into.
And our default programming.
Exactly. So if that's true, how much of your current money psychology is actually yours? And how much is just inherited, outdated programming that you have the power to completely rewrite right now?
That's a great point.
Those lottery winners we talked about at the beginning, the ones who lose everything, they lose it because they never updated their software to handle the new hardware. Are you running the right software for